This episode features reviews of the new Samia, the new Samia, the new Samia, and the new Samia. Hi, it's Steve. You're watching Ess-Fo. This is unofficially the World Cup edition of Ess-Fo, featuring Mengers from Mexico, as well as Gabacho and GA-20 from USA! 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 However unlikely it is possible for the US and Mexico to eventually face off in the tournament. So, why not? Let's make this the World Cup episode. Sorry, no Australia, though. Look at it. The official Budweiser World Cup Qatar anthem is called "The World Is Yours to Take." It's by Lil Baby. The little one is popular in the Qatar parts. Which features remixed pieces of Tears for Fears' Everybody Wants to Rule the World, which itself came to renown due to its association with the 80s comedy Real Genius, starring Val Kilmer. Everyone knows this. The irony of using that Tears for Fears song, which was about governmental abuse, environmentalism, and the threat of nuclear war, the irony is a little much to bear. Soccer has a borderline obsession with Tears for Fears, which is kind of odd, as if the NFL Super Bowl halftime show was routinely a hip-hop tribute to Sparks. The unofficial England anthem for World Cup 2010 was performed by James Corden and Dizzy Rascal, who based the track around Tears for Fears' Shout and cleverly named it Shout for England. This episode, we have reviews, one of which is by Gabacho and will make you feel like a foreigner no matter where you are. There's also Mengers, bringing you to the point of combustion. But first, a song that reminded me of the grunge era but is not a grunge song. GA-20 and Dry Run. As was experienced by so many generations before us, it's difficult to sit idly by as your youth gets recycled by pop culture. Inevitably, it becomes oversimplified and you struggle to remember how things actually were. And it's kind of insane because the 1990s were fairly well chronicled. In the 40s, they would sort of make social observations, like 1 in every 3 households has a radio. And then in the 60s, it was 1 in how many households has a television set. In the 80s, it was how many households have cable television access. And in the 90s, we moved so quickly. At first, it was like, 1 in 2 houses has a personal computer. And then we moved on to cell phones. And then we moved on to the interwebs. So if you want to know about the 90s, it's all there. It's digitized. There will be no tragic catalog destruction like the library at Alexandria. Many youngsters assume we were up to our necks in grunge, that everyone got 5-pack of flannel t-shirts for their birthday, and in a sense, that aesthetic, the grunge aesthetic, obviously did have an effect on, looser fitting clothes came into fashion. There's plenty of irony. And here's an example. If you were in high school at the beginning of the 90s like I was, you felt hosed as a boy by women's fashion. Frumpy had carried the day. But then by the end of the 90s, girls who dressed like grad school TAs in high school were suddenly dressing like private school jailbait, thanks to Britney Spears, on their weekend nights in college. So that, and they all had these black pants that they kind of hugged the butt, but also flared out at the bottom like bell bottoms. I think at U of I we called them bar pants. Girls called them, "Where's my bar pants?" However, early on, grunge and loose clothes weren't the only fashion. We had hypercolors. If you were into hip hop, it's more than likely that you owned clothes with the Looney Tunes characters on them, or maybe a Tweety Bird backpack. It was also the age of Garth Brooks and country singers with enormous hats. So if you shopped at Eddie Bauer or the Gap or Structure, you probably dressed more like Vince Gill than Sonic Youth, although there really wasn't much to separate them. One of the decade's most iconic films, Pulp Fiction, hardly acknowledges grunge, apart from the girl with all the shit in her face. And, Urge Overkill is on the soundtrack, but they're not grunge. They were from Chicago and they wore suits. Now, I said at the beginning that Dry Run by GA-20 is non-grunge from the grunge era, which was deliberate. Dry Run by GA-20 sounds like Pulp Fiction, not Chuck Berry and the Batusi or Uma ODing to UO. But the overall film score of dusty rock, country, and surf from the likes of Ricky Nelson, the Statler Brothers, and the Lively Ones. Dry Run is the song on the jukebox when you're the only customer in the place. Check it out.
Well, was that all I'll ever be? Your dry run. Was that all I'll ever be? Your dry.
It's the list of ills you've been compiling all morning. Burnt my tongue, broke my sunglasses, dropped my toothbrush in the toilet, forgot to get gas. Dominoes that have been falling since the moment she dumped you. Dry Run is the Why Baby Why blues with the tone of Steve Miller sitting in with Magic Sam and the Ventures. The band released the album Crackdown in September via Karma Chief / Coal Mine Records. They're currently touring the UK and France. Links are below.
Echamos a la brisa malos tiempos.
Are busy talking about why their manager picked several players who are injured, as well as some who haven't played for the national team in a couple of years. But what they aren't talking about is what's going to happen when their fans inevitably get wasted and go on a drunken rampage. Qatar's security apparatus, whatever it is, I assume they mean business, might suddenly become a source of great joy for the rest of the world. They must be looking forward to dealing with the English. I wish a motherfucker would. Nationalistic fervor will accompany all the teams onto the pitch, even Switzerland, because they have several players of Kosovar ancestry who like to let the world know. Mexicans will probably wryly sip their American beer, Gabacho beer. Gabacho is Mexican slang for something from or made in America. It's also Ciel Reynoso's stage name. He was born in Chicago but grew up in Toluca and was given the Gabacho nickname by classmates. Incidentally, my World Cup friends, Gabacho is also an archaic Spanish slur for the French. In many ways, Gabacho is the ideal Ess-Fo artist because during the past 3 years, he's only released singles and seems totally divorced from the album tour rigmarole. Regardless, his music seems loosely tied together and overall loose. Check it out. Is so playfully askew that it's addictive. It reminded me instantly of a compilation that was released a couple years ago called The Roots of Chicha, which collected some old psychedelic rock from South America. You can hear it in the colorful way that Sol de Mer kind of wobbles. Color is also big for Gabacho, who is also a photographer. The video for Sol de Mer features Gabacho as the leader of a women's exercise class, and it's the embodiment of a summer day. No tour dates are forthcoming or news of any forthcoming singles. He just kind of does things casually, which is so Gabacho, but not really Gabacho, if you know what I mean. Links are below. When it comes to Beastie Boys videos, my favorite one is actually not Sabotage, the beloved Sabotage, but actually Intergalactic. I think it matches the song better than Sabotage. I have a hard time thinking that Cochise would listen to modern guitar rock as opposed to disco or jazz flute. The scenes of the Beasties as scientists in the video, not the Devo construction workers, is what I think of when I hear Ram by Mengers. The Mexican trio actually look a little like Beastie's Friends, the John Spencer blues explosion in the video clip for Ram, but that could just be a mental trick being played on me because the guitar tone is very similar to John Spencer's guitar tone. What I can't work out is why the song sounds so rubbery. It's like the sound of an exercise treadmill that's maybe a little loose, or a Caprice Classic with deflated tires rumbling down a cobblestone street. Check it out. How I hear the song. Mengers are scientists who have unwittingly created an invincible groove and need to disarm it within 2 minutes. Built with floor toms and a 16th note bass line, it's a tunneling, wobbling menace that would break the will of even the most experienced twerker. Following the Big Bang, it takes Mengers about 40 seconds of increasing agitation before their first breakthrough. They imbalance the groove so that it teeters on the brink of a noise jag, although the fix is only temporary, and the groove breaks free again. Their second attempt is to chase it with a pipe rotter, though this only angers the groove, and which returns now with a crashing cymbal and a snare. Time is running out. Mengers think out loud, patiently before, eureka, just pull the plug. That's my take on the song. Anyway, Mengers recently wrapped up a 10-minute tour and released the album I/O, kind of like a power button, the I and the O, a couple weeks ago on Devil in the Woods Records. Links are below. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, donate. Don't forget to check my more recent reviews on Instagram and on Twitter, as well as my YouTube shorts and the stuff I throw up on TikTok. I've also begun writing for both Beats Per Minute and the line of Best Fit, so be sure to bookmark those sites. Cheers.